went on a great trip on the west coast of South Dakota.
Mm-hmm. Not only was this a great opportunity for you and I to go out and do some hunting, which we love to do, but it was TK our opportunity to break in the new hunting shack, right?
Yeah.
Where was the shitter? Right out the kitchen window. Nothing's more appetizing.
That guy's got a cute little turd cut on him. Come on now.
We're talking about boots and backstraps.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Boots and Backstraps podcast.
Brought to you by Homes by Shayne and produced by Danny Geo Productions.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Boots and Backstraps. I am joined in studio as always by my ever so dashing co-host and the Antelope Slayer himself, Mr. Tom Cat.
Come on now.
How we doing, sir?
Doing great, man. We got a kind of a new setup here in the studio. Unfortunately, all of you are going to have to see our faces up a little bit closer than maybe you would like to, but
unfortunately.
But yeah, we're going to talk about a fun hunt that we had. It's always fun to go out west. And while we were preparing to film, our good friend John Basinger from he was from Craig, Colorado. Now he's down a little bit south of there, but a friend of ours that we've hunted elk with for a long, long time. We're going to try and figure out how to get out to the mountains.
Did you say he's in Rifle now, or he's in Meeker, or what?
I think it's Meeker.
Okay.
Meeker, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where our friend Terry is as well. But we're going to try and get out west. And but tonight's episode's all about an antelope hunt that we just had, and it was fun. It's always fun to be out there, and we've got some pretty cool pictures. And Danny, I hope you what's the word?
Shipped it?
Shipped over that Photoshop.
Yours?
Yeah.
I will. Tom.
But go ahead and start us out, Shayne. Tell us about this fabulous bourbon that we're sipping on.
Yeah, so this one's a new one, not just for you guys, but for me as well. I've got this little local liquor store that I've been going to since early this summer, and I've been kind of chatting up the owner, getting real comfortable with him, friendly with him, in the hopes that he would let me know when he got allocated store picks in.
Right.
And he did tonight when I walked in.
Future sponsor.
He recognized me, and he gave me the wink, and went over, started chatting with him, and he let me know that he had the bottle that's sitting over there, which is a bottled and bonded Dickel, George Dickel.
Yep. It's
a very difficult bottle to find, and he had one. And I said, yes, I'll take that. I don't even care what it costs. And then he told me about this one, and he said this is another one that he was at a tasting for, because they get all these store reps together, and they let them taste different bourbons. They decide what they're going to buy. This one was in super high demand, so much so that he could only get a half case, 6 bottles of it total for his store to sell. And he had just one more of this one, and he had his personal bottle there that he's letting some of his close friends try there. And so I got to try it right before purchasing it, and I said, yep, I'll take that one too.
You know, everything's in short supply, cars, tractors.
It is.
So many things are in short. I can't imagine why whiskey would be in short supply.
Yeah,
can't make it fast enough because everyone's sitting at home bumming out about COVID.
Well, it's gotten so popular in the last few years, too. It's like there are way more people out there that are getting more knowledgeable about whiskey, about bourbons and ryes and scotch.
They sure are. I love it.
Yeah, it's like every time I go into Total Wine, where they always have obviously huge selection, I'm always in competition with about 10 other guys that are snooping around, and they're looking for allocated picks too. So it's way harder to find them there. The sort of secret is to go to these little mom and pop shops and talk to those owners, because they're not getting hammered by 50 guys that know bourbon like the back of their hand asking for allocated store picks. So this one is it's, as I said, it's Woodinville. This one is their private select single barrel bourbon. And the big deal with Woodinville, as I've learned from talking to the guy, is that what they do is this is a Washington bourbon. It's made in Washington State. And what they do is they bring the barrels up into the Cascade Mountains and let them age up there in all the extreme climate change throughout the year. Because, as you know, TK, being very familiar with the West Coast, they get some pretty extreme climate as it changes from season to season. And so,
bring an umbrella.
The barrels go through a lot of change in temperature and humidity and that kind of thing, and that's what really adds to their flavor profiles. So that's what we've got tonight, and we'll get a little clink and drink here.
This one's a little bit stronger than the ones we've had in the past.
It is indeed.
At least in recent history.
Oh, it's nice, though.
It is nice. It's real, for the strength of it, it's just got a mild, almost syrupy taste to it.
Very, very caramel in the front.
Caramel, that's it.
Yeah, caramel in the front. It's a 59.12% alcohol or 118.24 proof for those people that are proof people. So it's definitely on the stiffer side for proof. It's not for everybody because it does have a little more burn, as we've talked about in other episodes, and you get into like 80 and 90 proof bottles like that Pendleton that we had.
I feel the burn.
Those
You're
tend
supposed to drink it.
Under 100 tends to be a little bit more sweet with less burn. You start getting north of 100. Like this last weekend, we had friends of ours over for football on Sunday, and I fired up the smoker, and then we took out my Knob Creek Barrel Select, and that one is 130 proof. So that one definitely has some wake you up in the morning to
Knob
it.
Creek.
But it's delicious. It's fantastic.
Well,
So
speaking of football,
foosball.
I mean, these people that produce this in Oregon, all those people up there are Seattle Seahawks fans,
unfortunately,
and we did a whipping on them.
we did.
The Vikings finally showed up and played like they can play. I've always been high on our quarterback, and even though it was a rough, they just didn't seem very disciplined, especially in the first game.
Yeah, defense was a little
and then
loose.
Our kicker missed a field goal. They could be 3-0.
Easily 3-0.
And
they're away from a bad call on a Dalvin Cook fumble and then
Yep.
a missed 37-yard field goal from being 3-0.
What's the story with Dalvin Cook? Is he going to be fine?
Yeah, he'll be all right. He'll be back this week.
They're fun. They're going to be fun to watch. They're going to be fun to watch. Those first two games were painful, but it was fun to see him actually play from the beginning to the end. Solid football, and
It was exciting because that first half, was a little bit of a white knuckle situation.
right.
And the second half, they just shut them down.
Yep.
Not a single point from Seattle in the second half. And
Which
only,
is amazing. We always have trouble with Seattle.
yeah, only about 85 yards of total offense from Seattle in that second half.
Quarterback
as well, so.
shined.
Yeah. Yep, Kirk Cousins looking good.
I love Kirk Cousins. Great Christian man. Love him. I hope he can continue playing like that throughout the whole season. He didn't throw an interception, did he?
Nope, he hasn't thrown one yet this year.
I didn't think so.
8 touchdowns, no picks. He's looking real good.
I want to see him against Brady in the Super Bowl.
Well, that's not going to happen.
That's
because-
not going to happen. We're in the same league.
Yeah, now he's with Tampa, so he's
Yeah.
an NFC guy. But
Yeah.
anyway, so speaking of West Coast, because this Washington bourbon, we just got back from the West Coast, right? Well, not West Coast, but Western
West Coast
states.
of South Dakota. I'm sorry. Did you say this was from Washington? Yes,
Washington,
it is.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not paying attention. This is why I thought somewhere in the conversation.
Well,
you said
Seattle is in
Oregon.
Washington.
Yeah, I thought somewhere in the conversation you said Oregon, but
You got Roosevelt Elk on the brain.
I think so. I think so. Yes, we went on a great trip on the west coast of South Dakota, and we have some interesting shots of. We're close to there's several. How did I word that? There's several extensions of the Custard State Park that go up into Wyoming and up into northern South Dakota and
Custer National Forest.
Yeah, and our ranching friends, their property borders one of the Custer National Forest properties, and it's just spectacular. It's beautiful. These people that we hunt with out in South Dakota, Salt of the Earth, Claudia and Taylor. Taylor is in a wheelchair. Claudia is a couple years older than I am, and they run. I don't know for sure. I think it's 150,000 acres.
I think we were guessing 50 or 60,000,
50 or 60.
which is
It's
still
at least
a
60.
massive amount of property.
Yeah, and they run this. They run cattle.
They ranch
and
it.
horses, and they do have a hired man, but it's amazing how they. We helped them put in water tanks. It's amazing how they operate that thing. Those two alone, really. And Shayne and I helped them put in a water tank, and that's getting pretty sophisticated. They're routing underground water to various tanks because they're having the worst drought in history out there.
Yeah, she was talking about how just east of where they are, they'd been
Right.
getting some rain,
They have been.
but it
You
had
could
not
tell.
come that far west yet.
We driven through the eastern portions of the land that borders theirs, and it was green, and theirs
Alfalfa?
was brown.
And
It
nothing.
was terrible.
Yeah,
But we did have fun.
we did. And they're so hospitable and such fun people to talk to, and
Amazing people.
they are.
Amazing people. I've always said from Minnesota is kind of in the middle, and the more east you get of Minnesota, the more jaded people they are, at least in my opinion. And the further west you get through the Dakotas, Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, they just become. There's a lot of ranchers and cowboys out there, and they live by that cowboy code. And people are hospitable and kind and friendly and helpful. I just love being out west.
Yeah, it's amazing out there.
They say Minnesota nice, and I'm not so sure about that sometimes because I've been on the freeway on a busy Monday morning. Holy cow.
Well, in TK, I will tell you that one of my favorite things about this time that we've shared in hunting together the last 5 or 6 years is all these different terrains.
Yeah.
Because we hunt the plains, including the buttes and the plains and all this stuff in the Dakotas, Wyoming, like kind of that whole area.
Yep.
And then you get a little bit further south, start getting into Colorado and all that, and there's legitimate mountainous range, and it's a very different hunt.
Oh, yeah.
Different approach, different animals, different
And, I've always said,
philosophy.
Shane, I love it all.
Yeah.
Whether it's the prairies or whether it's the foothills or even the Black Hills, which I absolutely love the Black Hills. But if you get into the mountains, the Black Hills, the different terrains, or the northern woods of Minnesota and Wisconsin, it's all different and it's all cool.
It is.
It's just whether you're pursuing grouse, pheasants out down in Iowa or out in the prairies, South North Dakota, or you're pursuing antelope, which, someday I'd like to hunt eastern Colorado. They've got some cool antelope country out there, and down in Arizona and New Mexico. It's all great. I love it all. I mean, I just love it all, and I'm sure you do too.
Oh, I do. And as I've said in other episodes, I tell my wife all the time, the two places I feel closest to God are the Mass and the mountains. And that mountains is sort of more of a broad term for just hunting in general, because even when you and I sat in a bear stand a couple weeks back, we weren't even really out into that remote a country, but just being out there together when we're surrounded by all this wildlife. We saw a juvenile cub come in. We saw a bunch of deer. We had a doe basically almost come up to stand at us.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of deer. We saw that year-old cub. I guess he's a year and a half old. He wasn't a cub. He's just a small juvenile.
Yeah.
He was fun to watch, coming in and out a half a dozen times. We saw wood ducks. We had turkeys flying up in the tree behind us.
The raccoons.
Raccoons, big, fat raccoons.
They're eating all that bait.
Yeah. And then we had grouse when we were coming in.
Yeah, grouse.
Sandhill cranes. It's just amazing. We had a bald eagle fly past.
I tell you what, nothing like messes with your head more than those they're not squirrels, like groundhogs or
the little,
gophers
red
or
squirrels.
They're like scurrying
Gophers
around
and red
underneath you,
squirrels.
making
Yeah,
you think
they're fun.
making you think there's other wildlife coming in, and it's just those stupid things moving around down there. It's pretty funny stuff.
Yeah, when it's quiet out there in a bear stand, and all of a sudden a squirrel jumps around, you're like, bear.
Yeah, so anyway, not only was this a great opportunity for you and I to go out and do some hunting, which we love to do, but it was TK our opportunity to break in the new hunting shack, right?
Yeah, we should have a picture of that. I don't know if we do.
Well, we got Danny's video and stuff like that.
But we picked up a 1984 22-foot camper, and it works. We put some work into it, cleaned it up, and greased the bearings, and
lots of new lighting.
Put in all new lighting. It's looking good. It doesn't leak. That's the big thing.
It worked great.
It doesn't leak, and it pulls nice, and it's really comfortable. Some of the newer trailers, they make them lighter, and quite frankly, I've seen the difference because I had an old pop-up once from the 80s. We called it Daisy. A lot of my hunting friends remember Daisy, and it was so quality made. They had the bigger wheels, it pulled easier, and everything was more sturdy. Anyway, it's a cool old trader. We got it for $2,000, and it serves its purpose.
It rolls great.
Yeah,
it rolls
and it
great.
was comfortable.
When you look at it from the exterior or even the interior, it looks dated clearly.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell it's from the 80s.
Yep.
But it's in great shape.
It is in great shape.
It's not
and
banged up.
the air conditioning works.
Yes, it does. We used it.
Because it was hot out there.
Yeah, it was refrigerator cold in there at night. It was great. There she
There
is.
it is. Looks pretty long in that picture. That's pretty cool, though.
You can tell we were out there working on it all day because you got the Burger King cups on the ground there.
It's a great camper.
Had to take a burger break that day.
Still working on it a little bit every day, just doing stuff here and there.
We got some great stories about that trip, and some of them include that, stuff with that camper.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can get to that too.
Yeah.
I want to start with TK. Danny, did you get all that media from my phone? Okay, perfect. So one of the shots in there was one I took from my blind the first night that we were out there. And I don't want to skip ahead in the story because I want to back up a little bit. I just want to show this picture quick. It was the first sundown of our trip that we took. What's that? No, it's from my blind. It's the only one with the sun coming down. Sunset.
Yeah, I probably should have taken more pictures and stuff, but
Yeah.
oh, look at that. Now that is cool.
Isn't that beautiful?
And you're seeing
I thought
the
that
sun.
was the edge of the car, so I was very confused.
That's one of the windows in the blind.
It makes sense now.
And one of the reasons that is so gold, it's obviously coming through the atmosphere at its furthest length, but it's the fires in California and Canada, it's filtering through some of that smoke. But if you look down to the left, that's some reeds there, some cattails from the water hole Shayne was sitting on.
Yeah, and we'll talk about our spots and stuff too, because I think we have a couple of great spots for future use.
Absolutely.
Especially if they get a little bit more water out there, those would be great spots to be sitting on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so anyway, so we pack up, which we have not named the camper yet. We'll come up with something.
Daisy too?
Daisy too. Daisy do.
It's a nomad, if that
It is.
gives you.
Yeah, it's a
that's-
nomad.
Yeah, so we pack up the camper. We get on the road. Seemed like it must have been 5:30, 6 o'clock Friday night, right?
Yeah.
Or no, it wasn't Friday. What Sunday night.
Who knows?
Yeah, it was a Sunday evening. I remember. So Sunday evening.
Right.
And so we get on the road, and we had thought about it being kind of 9 to 10 hours on the way out there, but we realized as we're heading out there that we were a little light in one very important item. Do you remember what that was?
Brains?
well, that's always, but this trip specifically, we were light on something that you brought up as we were en route on the way out there.
Oh, our licenses.
Well, no. Has to do with that photo that we just showed.
We were a
As
little
a
light on
segue.
air on one tire.
We're light on blinds.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
we
we're-
only had one blind, and we needed blinds, so we're heading up.
So TK says he's got 2. Well, it turns out he's got 1.5.
Right. That's about right.
And I couldn't, like the day of when I'm packing all my stuff that morning to come meet you, I couldn't find my blind. I still think I loaned it to my buddy Nick. Shout out to Nick Stolt on this. But I can't find the thing. It's probably either Nick has it or it's buried in my garage somewhere. But I looked pretty thoroughly through the garage and couldn't find it. So anyway, so we're, a third of the way out there, and you're like, how many blinds you got?
Like you gotta, they're in a huge record-breaking drought.
Mm-hmm.
So we gotta have blinds. I mean, we can get out and decoy and spot and stalk and do all those things, which are tremendously fun.
Mm-hmm.
But we gotta have blinds for sitting on water holes.
Mm-hmm.
So just driving down the road, where were we? Sauk Center.
Something like that, yeah.
There's a Walmart. I don't know if they're gonna have any, but you got the last 2.
Yeah, we're pulling in, and TK looks over to the left, and there's an auto parts place. And I remember what it was. Maybe you're going to check for blinds, or you wanted to get something else?
No, there's also a hardware store over there, and I was gonna see if it was still open because a lot of hardware stores carry hunting supplies.
So he says, drop me off. So I drop him off right at the entrance of the parking lot to the Walmart there. And then I go into Wally's World by myself. So I'm walking across Wally's World and get back to the sporting goods section. And they got, up that in them parts, they got a pretty big piece of hunting area,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going up and down the aisles, and I come back up an aisle, and I start to notice, okay, now I'm getting into some like legitimate rifle and all that stuff. And I walk past this spot, and I look down, and there is 2 pop-up blinds right there, the last 2. And they were fantastically priced, by the
Yeah.
way, at $78 a piece.
Right.
And I was like, mine. I grabbed them both. They had little handles on the boxes, and I'm walking up the front, and everyone's looking at me. He's like, this guy's going hunting.
We're happy that you got those.
Yes. So come walking out of the parking lot, and you were coming across the parking lot already. I thought I was going to have to pick you up.
Yep.
And you were already coming back across, and I could see the smile on your face, like, yes.
Hardware store was closed.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So we ended
That's
up
how we
with,
started our trip.
yeah. This is on the way out there.
Oh.
For those of you who are listening to our podcast, we do broadcast on YouTube. So if you want to look at some of our visuals, head on over there, check out our link tree, and view more.
View more indeed. And while you're there, give us a like, give us that little thumbs up, do us a favor, pinwheel the like button, and subscribe.
Ring the bell
Yeah.
so you get notified when we have new episodes.
Yeah, get notifications when we post in general, whether it's episodes or some of the fun clips that Danny and her team put together for us. You'll get all that stuff. So do that while you're there. Make sure you leave a comment, too, because we like the comments on the videos and the clips and things like that. We
I
can
don't even
interact.
remember when you took that picture.
It was on the way out there.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't even remember where we
We
were.
made a 9.5-hour trip into 13 hours. Gee. Well, you know, I'm talking to my wife on the phone right away. We're getting to Alexandria, where you either got to start heading west and just do the left and rights all the way through North Dakota. And she said, well, don't you think it'd be safer on the freeway? Because, you know, if you, to where we were going, if you MapQuest it, it actually says it's a little bit, it's not long, shorter in distance, but a little bit shorter in time than going up through like Bismarck or Dickinson.
Mm-hmm.
But we missed both of them. We hit them both wrong. And anyway, 13 hours later, we showed up and it was fine. You know, sucked, but it was fine.
Yeah. So we got into the camp. We call it Antelope Camp. Got into Antelope Camp at about 5:30 or 6 a.m. the next morning, which was a 13-hour trip because you gain an hour going to the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're losing an hour, so whatever. Do the math. So it was 13 hours of drive time. And we knew we were going to lose a little bit because when you're pulling a camper like that.
Oh, yeah, we couldn't go faster than 65.
Yeah, you're not driving 75 miles an hour. So we were kind of averaging between 65 and 70 the whole way out there. And the camper pulled great, no problems. Other than one tire getting a little warm because we didn't have enough air in it, but we figured that out after the trip.
Yep.
Conveniently. But anyway, so we get out there. And we get out there and we get our camp set up. So I will tell you guys, for the listeners and viewers out there, TK is a guy that likes a very organized camp. Like, he doesn't like it where you just get there and throw your bags on the ground. That's not how TK rolls. He wants the pop-up. He wants the tables. He wants this over here and that over there. It takes 2 hours.
I'm with that guy. Yeah,
Just a set.
that's me.
This ain't no Robin Mislevish camp.
He wants it. Everything's got a place, and it's, you know, every place has got
How
a
would
thing.
you do it, Shane? I feel like that fits you too. I mean, really.
Yeah, you're pretty organized.
I've done events with you.
I am organized, but maybe it's because I haven't hunted, you know, for 100 years like TK has. But
Yeah.
we get out there, and he's just like, okay, we're putting this here and putting this there. And it's like all this elaborate setup everywhere. And it's like, I'm looking around like, is there like 8 more people coming I don't know about? It's just you and I. Do we
Yeah,
need-
well, if you'd have seen where the shitter was, you know it's not that organized.
I've seen it.
Where was the shitter? Where was
But,
it?
you know, when you get to be my age, you know, you got to have everything organized, and you got to have a table for all of your stuff. Because if you're hunting with a guy like Steve Woog, you got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to sort it out, because otherwise you won't know where the heck you put anything.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Oh, there's the shitter. Right out the kitchen window, because nothing makes you more hungry. Nothing's more appetizing over the sink there than.
that guy's got a cute little turd cut on him. I don't know what it is with you guys that I hunt with, between Wheels and Steve Woog and you and Dave Miller. Everyone's got to take a picture of me taking a dump. So for those of you that don't have YouTube or not watching this, you're lucky.
See if you zoom in real close, you can see one
I'm
in
reading.
mid-flight falling down.
Can you see?
No. Yeah.
I think I might be irking my irking.
There's Tom's in an important business meeting there.
I'm reading a elk hunting magazine.
A true hunter in the middle of nowhere, taking a shite, reading about elks so he can go hunt some elks.
That's right.
Giddy up.
So he says, we brought a Easy Up with us, one of those little canopy kind of tent things. It's 10 foot by 10 foot. And he's like, let's put that thing out front because that's where we're getting the most sun exposure. And we got a spot at Antelope Camp where these people have their, house and all their outbuildings and stuff, where there's a nice tree coming down. We figured this out the last year we were there.
Last year. Camp that baby right in the shade.
Yeah, so we put the Easy Up out in front of the camper on the sun side. And then Tom was, we want to set a table out there.
Over the banquet table with all of our stuff that can't get wet.
That's where I'm going to correct you. Because Tom was like, yeah, we got to get a table under this thing. And I was like, okay. And he goes, yeah, I got to have a place to work on our bows. Now ask him how many of the people that were at this camp's shit was on this table.
Well, I left room for you,
It
but
rhymed
you
with
evidently
one.
didn't use it.
Yeah.
I did notice that.
A little corner on the table. There's nothing on it there.
There was room for you.
Had his bow case and his tackle box and his bag and all this stuff all strewn out. And it's fine. Whatever.
What the hell? There was room for you.
I was like, when you said for us to put our bows, I guess I was imagining us both using the table. When I walked out there, I was like, all right, whatever.
I'm just surprised you didn't take my tackle kit and move it down and put your bow up there too.
No, I just put mine across one of your WeFest chairs.
Oh yeah, that works too. Whatever
worked
you got to
great.
do.
The armrest worked
We had a
great.
nice little camp. Do we have a picture of the camp other than me taking a poop?
No, I didn't take a picture of the camp
That was
itself.
nice.
I will, though, for future reference, so
Yeah.
people can see how organized and set up it is.
It was a sweet setup. Just hear the wolves and the coyotes howling. There ain't no wolves out there, but there's a lot of coyotes.
Sorry about that. I'm
No
attacking your
wolves in
microphone
that
there.
country. You
No,
get a little
there-
bit south there, and there's some wolves, and certainly a little bit west.
Quite a few coyotes out there. We were
Yeah.
both talking about coming in at night and how much howling and stuff there's going on.
I had two really, really big coyotes at a water hole one morning, and had I known there was so few antelope around, I could have taken one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're sitting there and the sun's just starting to come up and everything's starting to lighten up, the last thing you want to do is disrupt your hunting area. I could have taken a coyote, but then what if there had been a herd of antelope out 100, 200 yards and they see all the commotion and they take off?
Yeah.
So you didn't want to disrupt your hunting spot, so I passed on that coyote.
Yeah. Well, so when we first get out there, first day, what we decide to do is we get in there, like I said, it's 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and we get camp set up, which, takes an hour or two, and then we're like, you know what? Let's just take a little nap.
Yeah.
And because we've been on the road all night long, neither of us have slept, and we got to make sure we get a little charge in the batteries. I mean, you're not getting 8 hours, but you get 3 or 4 in a nap. And then it's time for us to get out and start exploring the terrain. Now, we know this ranch pretty well.
Yep.
Because we've hunted it a few times already. Even though, as TK mentioned, it's 50, 60,000 plus acres, we have a pretty good understanding of the ranch because we've been out and around a lot of it.
I think it's 160,000.
Yeah, it could be.
That just sticks in my head, and I'm pretty sure that's the right number.
It could be. So the challenge that we have with this particular year in this drought, TK, is the lack of water, right?
Right.
So we spend that first few hours that afternoon before we know we got to be getting into blinds, kind of looking around a little in our hunting app first, and then also maybe going to some of what have been our hot spots.
Well, they have that big water hole right behind the homestead there, and there's a dam, and this is a lake. By all means, it's a lake. It's probably, I would say it's probably around a 13-acre lake.
Yeah.
And it's shrunk down because of this drought. It is. I mean, I can't tell you the massive amount of water that is missing on this little lake. It's now it's a pond.
I got a video in there, Danny, of I'm pretty sure it was a video where I showed essentially where the weed line was last year when we were there, TK, with the water level all the way down to where it is now.
Even
Does it
last
have
year,
the antelope in it?
Deer. Those are deer.
Oh, those are deer.
Those are whitetail. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got it.
even last year,
So I
the
didn't-
water level was down.
Let's go to this, and then I want to talk about the deer for a second too. But so this little video look at that buck. Oh man, it still hurts me. I want to cry. He was a monster.
Underneath that
Why
buck,
does
you
it
see
make
that
wanna
line?
cry?
Because I didn't have a tag.
Oh.
He walked within about 40 yards of me, and he was a pig. He was a big-bodied deer, and at least an 8-point. He would have been a wall hanger for sure.
You see where he's walking right now? That's the water line where it used to be. You see that ridge?
Yeah.
Then you can come down further and you see that water line where it was last year.
So where he's standing broadside to me right now, that's like a 40 or 45-yard shot. I am deadly at that yardage. Like I could just about put an arrow through a silver dollar at that yardage. So he was done if I had a deer tag, but I didn't have a deer tag. And so I just had to be a observer and an appreciator of one of God's creatures, because that deer was beautiful. That was a beautiful whitetail deer. And there was 3 of them that came over that ridge that night. There was a doe and then a couple of bucks. One that was more of a medium-sized buck, and then that big boy there. So, Danny, was that the end of the video?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. So can you play that video again real quick? Go back to this. And I want to say there might have been another video I did that showed a little bit more of the water line. Okay, stop. So
That is a big buck.
can you rewind it to the beginning? Go back to the beginning.
Only in my VCR.
That's fine. That was a shot at you.
We got one of those.
All right, so on the far right, for those people that are watching us on YouTube or Spotify or one of the video platforms, on the far right side of the screen here, the water is still probably 20-ish feet to the right.
Bring your cursor down to that line that goes across right in front of the deer. Right there. That's where the water used to be. That's when it's full.
And it where you can see the mud down there toward the bottom of the screen, it was still the water right now as we were out there was about 20 feet to the right. Now play the video, and you can see as I scroll left following this deer, just how far left that water line was the last year we were there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was way up there in comparison. All the way up there to where that mud is and all that grass and stuff.
Right.
That water was way down.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Man, that was a really nice deer. Anyway. So we go there first because we're familiar with that spot.
Right.
Check it
Got
out.
a blind set up.
Got a blind set up. And then we talked with Taylor and Claudia a little bit about some of the other spots that we knew there was water, and they were like laughing, basically like, no, there's nothing there. It's bone dry.
Right.
And there was another water hole that you were interested in, TK.
Right. And we finally got to it. We could always see that water hole from the road, and we took off, and if we didn't have your phone with us and the satellite view of it, we'd have never found the darn thing.
Right.
I mean, but it's a great water hole, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. And there were so few antelope tracks there, and I sat there for 3 days, portion of 3 evenings or a couple mornings, whatever.
Three
it was.
sits.
Three
right.
sits, right.
Yeah.
And never saw an antelope, just those 2 coyotes. And I was like so surprised because, a drought is good for an antelope hunter who wants to sit on a water hole.
Yes.
If you get into the rut, which is like really starting when we were there.
Yeah.
And, another week after that, it's nice to get out and decoy them and spot and stalk them because they're goofy and they're out there acting crazy, running in circles. That's really a lot of fun, but it's really a lot easier to get an antelope. I think the statistics show that if you sit on a water hole during a drought, you're going to have much better success. And I can't believe nothing was coming to that water hole. Surprised me.
And I'll tell you what, TK, once because we're there a couple days, and then we ended up finding one pretty good hot spot. That's one I was sitting on. And then 2 days left of our trip, we found another really good one for you.
Right. Yeah, that was a fun one. I actually harvested the last hour of the last day. You've heard the stories about waiting it out till the last time. I had a juvenile, just a small buck come by, but he
you
came
say
by.
small. He had a good body on him.
Yeah. Antelope don't fluctuate much like elk or deer or whatever. They're, bucks are bigger than the does, and I guess about 150 pounds. I guess that's what I guesstimating on the top of my head. I guess someone would know more about the size like John Basinger. But anyway, he came in, and I did have a decoy up at a water hole, and he stopped to look at that decoy, and he was like, what in the world is that? And he paused he was only 20 yards from me, and I just hammered him. And,
Tom could knock the flea off a dog's back at 20.
Yeah. Yeah, 20 maybe.
I'm going to brag on you for a second because you bragged on me with different stuff. I have shot with you for a long time now and at 20 yards. And the reason why I bring this up is because 2 years ago we went on an elk hunt together and you knocked down that real nice 5x5 and everybody was questioning you because that bull went so far that they're giving up hope. Like, oh, we're not going to find this thing. He didn't hit it good enough.
And I'm like, I know I hit it right where I should be. I can see it in my brain.
And it was at 19 yards. And
then you know how it goes if you're a hunter.
Yeah, you start questioning
you
it.
know, everyone's like, I'm so glad we found that elk so they could see where the hole was.
But my point is I was telling everybody that whole time we're going up that mountain because they're all coming to me going, well, do you think he really? And I was like, yes. If that's at 20 and under, Tom could literally take the fly off a dog's back. Like that thing is... He will put it exactly where he wants it at 20. And the next morning when we found that bull, you better believe that shot was right exactly where you said it was.
Kind of wish we had a picture of that right now.
Yeah, it's actually in my phone in that hunting folder.
Right.
If Danny wants to grab that, we can come back to it later. But
there's a picture of a bull in a shed, big pole building.
I got one of you
hanging.
sit next to it. When you had hands on, I got that picture in there too.
But you can see where that's the antelope that I got this year.
Yep. Hold on one second. Just stay here for 1 second.
We're talking about two different things, Danny. It's all right.
In the hunting folder on my phone, there's actually a picture of Tom with an elk, where he's sitting on the ground, and it might even actually be in our intro video. It's a 5x5, and let me just see this for one. Oh, Jill's locked out of my phone. That never happens. Joe runs my life. All right. I'm just going to grab this real quick. So anyway, so Tom, here's that. That's an antelope. Danny, can you pull that back up again, please? Come on, phone. Come on, phone.
Come on now. Antelope are such a cool animal. Look at the colors on that thing. The black nose.
That's the shot. That's the picture I'm talking about.
Yeah, but can you see the arrow?
Not on that one you can't. I think maybe a couple pictures before that you can or something.
There's a picture close to that where the animal's hanging upside down, from the hooves.
It's got the four of us all kind of crowded around it. But so anyway, so Tom, let's go to this one real quick while they find that picture. Here's that buck you shot.
Yeah, it was last morning, and the previous day I saw a big buck up on top of this knob to the left of me, and he was standing up there, king of the mountain, and making these donkey noises, noises that I've never heard an antelope make before. And I'm like, what? And I'm looking at him, I said, that's coming from him. And, I've heard a few of their vocalizations, but this one sounded like a mule. And he's surveying that's what they do. They go from knob to see where the antelope are and who they want to hook up with because the rut was starting.
Yeah.
And he was making rutting noises. I don't know, I swear. It sounded like a donkey up there. And he come charging down, but he was way out of range, and it was really cool to see him because we're in an area where there's really not a lot of antelope. So to seeing him come flying by me, and he was on his way to greener pastures, and the next morning, this guy is on that same knob, and I had seen him. Actually, I seen him the night prior to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he was up in that same area where the big one was. And, the next morning, all of a sudden, there he is. And he's looking down my way. And I said, hey, I only got 1 more hour. Come on down. And he did. But he didn't take the same route that big one did. He was coming right past my blind. I was in a windbreak. There's a cattle corralling on a
water tank. What a great spot that was. The cover was incredible. Your blind blended it unbelievably.
Yeah.
No, I barely saw the blind.
Right.
Standing there.
Yeah, well, neither one of them antelope saw the blind, which is a bonus. And anyway, I had a decoy up, Montana decoy, silhouetted at that water tank. Well, he was headed down to where the water was draining. That had formed a little pond down below. Mm-hmm. I would think, man, why wouldn't you want to just come right to the tank? But, they do what they do.
Yeah.
And he's going to go right by me, but he stopped at 20 yards to look at my decoy, and I hammered him. And
So he doesn't have super tall horns, obviously, because he's not, he's not a 5-year-old antelope. But the body on that guy was really impressive.
And don't
for
forget,
his age.
Excuse me, folks. Shayne, don't forget, I've got all that antelope meat butchered, and don't forget to take yours home with you tonight.
Well, I was going to mention, actually, because I still have Jill's cooler in my back seat.
Okay,
that
good.
red igloo with the telescoping top on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, Jill, I got your cooler, but you can't have it back tonight because I needed to get that antelope home.
Oh, I got plenty of coolers.
I'll bring it to the closing tomorrow.
Hey, I got those photos of Tom's other.
Yeah, that elk, that 5x5.
That's him on the ground.
All right, I also got an arrow photo or an arrow spot. That one.
Yeah, look at that. What a great shot,
Oh,
TK.
yeah, there it is. Yeah. I think I purposely walked up to him and said, see?
Yeah.
Yeah. See.
There's our crew. It's Tom and I, and then
So is
Steve
this the
Woog.
tag right here?
Steve Woog, and yes, it
the
is.
green thing on the. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never seen one.
And Tom Patnode, right?
Yep.
Tommy P. What a great trip that was. What a really good group of guys. So to stay on this one for a second, Danny, you go back to that picture. So when you're aiming for an elk or an antelope or a deer, because they all have very similar vital zones, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get your two best options are what, TK?
Well, I think, a broadside shot, and everybody, especially archers, rifle people might want to drop them. They might want to anchor them and hit them in the high shoulder, which will hit the spine and drop them right in his tracks. But for the most part, we try to double lung him.
Yeah, double lung.
And if he's quartering away, you shoot behind that last rib and go into the lungs. And this one, I think, is...
If they're really close, you go right for the pump station, right?
Yeah, I think this one was like right between the heart and the lungs.
Yeah.
I swear.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's actually where the arrow went, and I think it just nicked both of them.
Because he was quartering
Somebody
slightly
smarter
away.
than me. No, he was totally broadside.
Okay.
I mean, he was totally broadside at 19 yards, and I don't know why he took so long to die, but
Did we ever
as
find
you
the
can
arrow?
see, yeah, I found the arrow.
Stubborn.
You can see the triangle on that hole.
You
where the
wouldn't,
blades went in.
yeah, and you wouldn't believe how far this guy walked with that perfect shot at him. And he was, I mean, the blood spots and the blood trail and all that were really impressive. He should have been dead half of as far as he went.
It's pretty hard to get a pass through with a bow. There's some big guys shooting 30-inch draw length and double arrows, arrow inside of an arrow with a lot of heavy weight that can get a pass through, but most people don't get a pass through on an elk. And if it would have gone out the other side, then you'd had really better blood, to track.
Well, I think we had pretty good blood.
Yeah, we had enough.
Yeah, and we didn't, as it turns out, with your antelope, didn't have to do that much tracking.
No, I watched him, but he went, antelope, when you hit them, man, they just take off like a rocket. And he went rocket right into a ravine, and he actually went a little bit further than I thought he would, but he tumbled.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think he went over 100 yards.
Mm. So yeah, so to go back in the conversation, the first spot we found was the one I sat on, and that was where we had that sunset picture, and it was probably a pretty nice little water hole that was way tucked back on the ranch.
Right.
So it's a perfect spot. Definitely going back there next year, no questions about it.
Right.
And I had a ton of activity over there, and only ended up having one that came into shooting range, and that chair.
Yeah. I hope Willie isn't watching this podcast, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I was sitting with Shayne the first day. We're sitting together, and he had this about $160 chair.
Very expensive chair.
I'm like, I'm sorry, you spend your money a little bit more readily than I do. A little camp chair will work for me, or a bucket with a little swivel on it.
Tom's got this, we have different philosophies. Tom's got this, I've had this chair forever, and it's sitting in the corner of my garage doing nothing, so I'll just throw it in a blind and use it for hunting.
Yeah.
And I was in the, I want to make sure I've got the best equipment to improve my odds. As it turned out, that didn't happen.
No, I'm sitting next to him, and all of a sudden he shifted weight and went snap, crackle, bang. And I'm like, I mean, it sounded like that because I'm sitting right next to him. I'm like, well, that's not going to work.
Girls, you should have seen him look at me. We're sitting in the blind, and luckily there was no antelope around at that moment or whatever, but he looks at me and he's like, You can't sit in that chair. That's loud.
And it did. He had an antelope come in 30 yards, and he went to shoot, and that thing went snap, and that antelope gone.
Yeah, so to rewind the tape a little, as we said, that 30, because I said 40, 45 on that whitetail before,
Okay.
30, absolutely done. I
Yeah.
don't care what it is, 30 yards, it's down. And it was standing out in front of me at 30, head down, drinking a little bit of the water that was in front of me in this little area that used to be a sizable water hole,
Yeah.
and now just a little bit of water in there. And I was just getting ready to draw my bow back, and I shifted my weight a little bit forward in that chair so I could get that good draw. And it creaked, and that antelope head up and gone.
All right. Yep.
Yeah, all of the 60 miles an hour like this, just gone. So
No, yeah. I mean, it's just a shame because you spend all year and you spend a bunch of money, and we get our licenses and we go out west. You know, all the money that and all the time and all the effort and all the excitement that goes into it. And all of a sudden, you're pulling back and just a little sneak or a crack or a creak in a chair, and you're done, man. And it's just ruined your hunt. And you spent, I don't know how much money you spent on that damn chair.
Tom.
Yeah.
Shayne already feels like shit. Maybe
Oh, I know.
less. Maybe less is more.
Oh, I guess I'm not giving it to Shayne.
I can
No,
see.
no.
feel bad
I can
for
see
him.
his tears welling up. So if you could just,
Well, it's things like that have happened to me. Like
everybody.
pheasant
all
hunting.
hunters.
I mean, I spent a bunch of money on it. It was a used shotgun, but a real, Jimmy Rocher's store, Joe's, long time ago, and they certainly took care of the problem for me. I mean, they gave me a brand new shotgun for cost, and took
It
that.
doesn't change the fact
I mean,
that
two roosters jumped up in front of me, and I got this, and I had it clean. I had it apart, put it back, and click nothing. I got nothing. Two roosters. When I was younger, man, opening a pheasant season was a huge deal for me. So I went back to that store, and I was just so mad. And that's when I met Ron Fisher, who we'll have on our show at a later date. He just took care of me, but things like that happen to you that shouldn't happen to you. There's enough that can go wrong in the natural without something dumb like that happening.
stuff that's outside your control.
So I just I feel bad for you.
Yeah, Danny, there's a photo of me, and that was when I was walking back out that morning,
Okay,
and I was just trying to stay positive.
is it this one?
Well, that's me.
Oh,
There's my other antelope. I forgot to tell you about that one.
wait.
Oh, that's
Is it your
hilarious.
antelope or is it Shayne's antelope?
Oh,
That's hilarious.
Maybe it's all of the people's and
That's-
that guy, this guy, and this guy.
all
and
right.
this
Go to the
and
guy that actually killed it.
That's the actual.
If you're
guy.
watching this, we met this kid in a cafe with his uncle, and they're from the area, probably 100
you
miles
almost
east of
said
us.
it there.
Look at that.
That's
Look at that thing.
That for those of you guys that don't know, that's a record book antelope. We're
Yeah.
talking about record book, talking about the
that TK got.
Super Pope and Young, and
TK. Look at your face.
I didn't know that South Dakota had
It's a good
antelope
smile on
that
that guy
big,
there.
man. That is a monster.
That is a absolutely for sure record book antelope. I mean, that thing is monstrous,
Yep.
huge tines on that.
I don't know if it made Boone and Crockett. I would think it would. I guess I didn't ask the guy, and if we did ask him, I don't remember.
He said he thought for sure it was Boone and Crockett.
Oh, it's absolutely Boone and Crockett. It crushed Boone and Crockett. No. Excuse me.
Pope and Young.
Pope and Young.
Yeah.
Pope and Young's
What-
archery.
What
Boone
are you
and
talking
Crockett.
about?
All right. There's record books for archery, and there's record books for firearms. Pope and Young is two world famous archers from California, and they have the record book, and they're long dead, but the record book is named after them.
They're like
for
the
archery.
Guinness. They're like the Guinness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then Pope and Young, Boone and Crockett is Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett. So their
Yeah.
record book
Firearms.
is for firearms, and the deer or the elk, the antelope, the deer, the bear, whatever, has to score a certain score to make it into those books. I've got a few of my animals in Pope and Young and Boone and Crockett, but that one is definitely, he's probably a booner.
It's unbelievable. It's a very impressive animal. So anyway, yeah, there we go. So that's me walking back out that morning. I'm wearing my I've got a harness that's got my bino and my rangefinder and stuff all on it. So
What's a bino?
binoculars. So that pouch that's in front of me
Yeah.
houses my binoculars, and then you can't see it, but off to that right side of the camera, there's another separate little pouch over there, which is actually my right side, that has my rangefinder in it. Rangefinder is a little handheld device that tells you from where you are how far away the thing you're range finding is.
Why do you call it a bino?
Binoculars, bino.
Oh, wow.
It's shorter than saying binoculars. You know,
Not when you have to say it 10 times to me.
it's like, why do people call it a rhino? Because rhinoceros is a lot to say. That, it is. Yeah. Anyway, so that was me trying to keep a positive attitude, even though I got blown out of an animal that morning. And so right away, told the whole thing to TK, and TK was like, we got to switch your chair. So we go into Taylor and Claudia's, one of their pole buildings. They had a bunch of banquet stuff in there, chairs and tables. And we grabbed a metal folding chair.
Works just, you can get those for nothing.
But did
and-
you grab it and like, and like sit in it and squiggle around like,
Oh,
do
yeah.
you make
Yes,
noise?
ma'am, I
I
did.
bet you
And
did.
it's got that plastic bottom, so you don't need
I rubbed
necessarily
my
need
dirty
a stittle.
hunting rear end all in that
Did
thing.
I say stittle? Because your butt can slide on those.
Yes, and it did.
And if you set up properly for your windows, you don't necessarily have to.
And it didn't make any
But
noise.
it's nice to have a back.
Yeah, it was totally quiet.
That's some shit.
The one thing I'll say is when you're in your blind, you're sitting in there
Sometimes a
4
long
or
time.
5, 6 hours,
Yeah.
and that metal chair's not comfortable. Especially for a guy like me who don't got much ass, it's not
I
comfortable.
lost mine a few years ago. I can't find that son of a
Fell
gun.
off, yeah.
Just like I can't find my elk calls. I don't know what happened to them.
It's in a drawer somewhere, I'm sure.
If you're watching or listening and you have Tom's elk calls, please bring them back.
Yeah. Or his
Thank you.
ass. Or his ass.
Yeah.
Also, if you find
Especially
his ass.
my ass.
You've seen it anywhere.
Getting a
You want it
frog
back.
butt in the last few years.
So anyway, switch the chair, and I know we talked about you and the blind that you're on and the activity. You had a fair amount of activity, even though you were only there for 2 days. And this other spot that I was in with the whole chair debacle, I was in that one for 4 days and had a ton of activity there as well.
Yeah.
Now, not so much into the water hole I was in, but when I came out of that a couple times just to kind of survey the landscape, I did see a few really nice bucks just outside of bow range. A couple of times when I was in the blind, I would see a buck and a doe, or just a buck by himself or a doe by herself, kind of roaming around on the prairie around us. And we've got some video of that as well
You do. Good.
that we can throw up in here.
I have to be more diligent about taking video and pictures from my blind.
Yeah, Danny, can you grab that video that I took when I was in there of that buck and doe that were out in front of us, kind of out in front of me, playing around on the prairie. Now, they were just outside. They were outside of my range because they were playing around about 200 yards.
It's a video?
Yeah, there's a video.
Are they drinking the water? Not that video?
I think that one with the horns is sniffing the other one's keister.
Yeah. Okay. I have this photo.
Yeah, so that's the same. You can see on the okay, so it's difficult to tell. Can you zoom here, Danny, please, to help me out a little bit?
Oh, my. I could do some things I didn't know. Okay.
All right, so on the right, that's the buck, and you can see the antlers kind of coming up there.
And
On
black
the left
face.
is a doe.
That
On
is
the
a
left
nice buck.
is a penguin.
So they were playing around.
Looks like a penguin.
A penguin. It does a little bit with the shadow. This is early morning. This is probably 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, something like that. I'm in the blind, and you can see there's a hillside there. So I was surrounded all the way around all four sides by hill like that, and then all the way down the basin of that was water previously, but not water now. So a lot closer to where I was sitting was some smaller pools of water, which is what we were hoping they'd come into, and they were kind of coming and exploring the situation. But there wasn't as much water as there typically, as you can see, because all that basin was dry over by the side where they are, that hillside there. Anyway, so this doe and buck were chasing each other around a little bit on all around to my right side, which is where I took this picture, and out into the front a little bit. And I do have some video of this same couple, we'll call them a couple, that was on my phone. Anyway, so we don't even need to necessarily find the video. It's totally fine. So anyway, they never got any closer than 175 yards or maybe 150 yards or whatever, well outside what I was comfortable taking a shot at, clearly. But it was just cool to see all that activity around the blind in the same way that you had that monster buck outside yours that was making all kinds of crazy sounds. That's like half the reason we do what we do with this hunt.
15, 20, 25 years ago when we used to go out there to this particular part of the world in South Dakota, there used to be lots and lots of antelope, and they've pretty much disappeared. But there's still a few remnants about. But you'd see activity all day, every day.
Yeah.
And it was just so much more fun. But even though it's still fun to go out there, it'd be a little bit nicer if they had a real mild winter, a real good spring, and the population came back a little bit.
So the nice thing is last year when we were there, we had very little activity anywhere we were. We did a lot more spot and stalk, not much in the way of blinds because they were in between that sweet spot of having a drought where you're sitting on a water hole, or when you've got a lot of water and you've got an opportunity to spot and stalk because there's more coverage with the foliage. Last year was in between where you didn't have a real good opportunity at either side. So we didn't have much opportunity to fill our tags last year. This year, with the drought, we actually had a fair amount of activity once we found a couple of good spots.
Right. And they're making spots. They're making new water holes. It's amazing to me. I'd see these berms going through the pastures and for miles. And they're actually laying pipe underneath them. They've drilled a massive well not far from their front gate, and they're pumping water to these water holes, and I've never seen that before. It's new technology, and it might not be new technology, but they figured out a way to do this. And they've got tanks out there now that, like the tank that where I mashed my forehead, we helped them put in why don't you explain it?
Yeah.
Help them put in a culvert over their mechanism.
So they had a tank that they were wanting to turn off and take apart. They weren't going to use it anymore. Then another tank that had a faulty overflow setup on it.
Because the cattle will get their noses in there and mess with it.
The horses
will, yeah.
Yeah. Horses are sticking their noses in there and messing with the overflow mechanism.
It's the same mechanism you'd find in any toilet.
Right, exactly.
With the ball. And
so they bought a couple of cement cylinders that you'd set down over.
Like culvert, but like only about 3 foot tall.
Yep. Well, they'd set down over the mechanism so that cattle and horses and other animals couldn't get into where the mechanicals were. And so we helped them with their tractor and stuff.
Yeah.
TK got to ride in the side-by-side out there, and I rode in the tractor with Claudia. And we went down into, the smaller tank where we set a center cylinder culvert in.
Right.
And that was nice and easy. And then we went up to where they were actually taking down a very small tank setup, disassembled that, got all the parts out of that, went down to their largest tank, and that's where we were kind of trying to get all set up in there, and we ended up having to replace a piece of mechanism because it broke and that kind of stuff.
But while we were heading back from that, if Danny would show the picture of the coolest longhorn you've ever seen. I mean, it's a cool picture because there's this Texas longhorn.
There he is.
And he's got a messed up left horn. And
he's
you can
terrifying looking. Just so, I mean, beautiful animal.
He's old, very
terrifying.
old.
Yeah.
He's old, and he does look like a calico cat or some dang thing. I don't know what you would call. I've never seen anything quite like that guy. But I wanted to get a picture of him. And in the background, you can see that's the eastern portion of their property, and that's the extension of Custard National, one of the many extensions of the Custard National Park. But isn't that a great shot? Look at that. Look at that thing.
That's great.
I don't know if he ran into a post or what he did.
I was staring at this picture wondering how and when it was going to come up. Like, what is this? And why is it staring at me?
So Claudia was saying at one point a couple winters ago that one side, I don't know if he lost it, got it hung up on something or whatever, but it came off. And then what's there now is what grew out of there. And of course, it's not what you would typically expect to see.
Yeah.
Half ram on that side.
Yeah,
Half
there
ram,
you go. He
half.
looks like a half bighorn sheep.
Yeah,
There you
so that steer belongs to one of her sons, She got 2 sons, and she was saying that that's a very old steer, and they weren't expecting it to live a lot longer, but pretty cool little
Pretty
story,
unique
though.
animal, and seeing the national park in the background, they got a cool. They don't know it because they're born and raised there.
Yeah.
They don't know how beautiful their land is. To them, it's just land. They got to work it every day, and
Mm-hmm.
they're used to it. But flatlanders like us come out to a place like that, and it's just really spectacular and beautiful to us. And they've got a river that runs right through their property that's bone dry. But when the water's running, it's pretty cool.
Yep, agreed.
There's another video, Shane, of I believe is it the cows drinking?
Throw her
throw
on
it up,
and
yeah,
we'll
throw it up here, Will.
see if we know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, is that out of the? That's out of that blind where we were talking about. That water used to be like
Way,
a
way
small
higher,
lake.
right?
50
Yeah.
or 60 feet to the left. Yeah, I'm showing the spot there where the water is, and then I keep scanning left, and you can kind of see. Hold on. Can you go back, Danny? How much of the film is left? Oh, lots. Just wait a second. Let's see if it goes back up there to that other side again.
But you can see the dirt embankment beyond them.
Mm-hmm.
The water would go up to there.
Okay.
And it's kind of hard to get a perspective on it because you're looking at it on a video.
Go all the way back to the beginning. Okay.
Like there?
Nope.
All the way?
All the way back.
That's
There we
the
go.
beginning.
So you can see where the water is, and then I move the camera a little bit left here in just a second.
Mm-hmm.
Or my phone, I guess I should
Just
say.
amazing. I mean, I can't begin to tell you how big this little lake was.
Keep going. I think it goes a little further, doesn't it? There we go. Stop. So you can see on the far left there where it's got that kind of like dry mud spot.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes about another 10 feet past what you can see in the camera there. From there all the way to where the water is right now. All that was water last year.
Mm.
I think, Shane, it goes even further than what you're thinking in a normal year.
Yeah, it just goes
It's
way up
unbelievable.
there.
That's
And
terrible.
again, it's hard to get a perspective when you're watching a video on it, but if you're standing there, I'm like,
Can I get on my soapbox for a second, TK?
you can do whatever you want.
Those cows had me pissed off.
Those weren't cows, those were bulls.
Bastards is what they were.
They were big bulls, and we wasted too much time because they were just taking up the water hole, and the antelope aren't going to come in when the bulls are. I mean, they'd come into a different spot, but that's the spot where they like to come in.
So 2 things I want to say about that blind and those bulls, because there's about half dozen of them or maybe 8 of them that were in that general area coming to that water spot, into that dam area there. So the first thing I'll say is I was sitting out there, and it was still too early to really have a lot of activity, probably 6 o'clock or whatever. So sundown was about 7:30. Usually you start getting within the last 30 or 45 minutes is when you start getting most of your activity of sunlight. So we're in that 90 minutes of before we get to last sunlight. And one of those bulls, so you can't see, but behind that blind is about, we'll say 10 feet. And then there's a pretty steep incline to a road, 2-track, that separates the 2 sides of
The dam.
Yeah, like a gulch and the dam.
Right.
So I'm butted pretty tight up against where this
That tree is.
hill is.
Yeah.
Right there. And I'm sitting there just kind of like, I'm calm, I'm relaxed, out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm just kind of watching around. And this is not when I was filming that. There was no bulls in front of me. There's nothing in front of me. So I'm just kind of looking around up front, waiting to see either those deer come walking down or an antelope or whatever. And all of a sudden I hear this crazy ruckus behind me. And I almost shit my pants. What was going on is one of those bulls was running up and down this hillside right behind my blind, scratching his back on all the foliage back there. Now, the crazy thing is he's probably within 3, 4, 5 feet of my blind. If he just decided he was going to detour just a little bit and run through my blind, I'm a dead man. Because those bulls are 1,000 pounds, 1,200 pounds, easy. So if he just decided he was going to run through where my blind was, there's nothing I can do. You can't get out of that blind.
I hear
quick.
you. I had one do the same thing, not exactly the same thing to me, but there were multiple times when I was sitting on that water hole, I got out because the bulls were looking at me and they were coming just too close. I'd grab a big mud turd and throw it at them, and a mud ball, and they'd walk off. And
Wait, I thought only I thought only monkeys threw their turds.
Well, this was actually a mud ball.
Okay.
A dried mud ball.
It's not a cow pie?
Nope. But I know those bulls, there's some big bulls in there, and they're the boss of that country, and they don't necessarily like us interrupting their drinking. But yeah, that could be scary because they've been known to knock down a blind or two in their day.
So the second story with those bulls was the first night I was out there is when I saw those big deer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I would love to see those deer again, maybe a little bit more footage, that kind of thing. So I'm set out there that second night, and I'm just waiting. We start getting to the point where, like, it's getting dusk out there, and the sun's starting to go down. We're probably within 30 minutes of that literally sundown time. I'm like getting so excited because I'm like, the deer are going to be coming any time now because there's a track, which you could see in the first video she showed,
Right.
that crested that hill right there where they would just come over that little hill from one side of the ranch,
Mm-hmm.
and they would just cross right by the blind past that dam area. And I was like so excited because I'm like, I can't wait to see this deer come through here again, maybe like another deer or more deer or whatever. And wouldn't you know it, those asshole bulls come walking right on down, like 5 or 6 of them, right exactly at that time to get a drink. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me, just killed it. So as 3 or 4 of those bulls come walking down, a doe and one of those big bucks came walking across the side of the dam in front of me and got to where they would come down that little hill right there like they had the previous night.
Uh-huh.
And instead of coming down and going out in front where they were, they just took a right and went back out the other side.
Sure.
Just killed me. Just killed me. I'm like, come on.
Oh, well, you got to see them.
I did. Yeah.
That's cool.
It was cool. It was cool. I mean, that's half the reason to be out there, right?
Yeah, seeing all the animals. And
Amazing.
like in that bear stand the other night, we saw a ton of animals.
Yeah.
Just songbirds and, raccoons and stuff. But we saw a lot of game animals. We saw deer. We saw bear. We saw turkeys. We saw grouse. Sandhill cranes. Bald eagle. Oh, wait a minute. You can't shoot bald eagles. Just kidding.
Can't take this guy anywhere. TK, one of the things I wanted to mention is giving credit where credit's due. When we go on these hunts, we always eat like kings.
Oh, gosh.
Because not only do we bring snacks, because snacks are important, right?
Yep.
But our beautiful and ever so talented wives always prepare some meals for us.
Right.
And I got a photo here, Danny, of one of the nights we were set down to eat. And this is TK's
Boiled dinner.
boiled dinner.
That's venison sausage, maple venison sausage, and cabbage and mushrooms and carrots and celery and tomatoes. Love it.
It was incredibly delicious. We're sat down in our fancy hunting shack.
A couple of bottled Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, exactly right. And
Yeah, we always eat good. And then Lynn always makes her world famous oatmeal and raisin cookies.
amazing.
She should have a booth at the fair.
She should.
She'd kick what's her name's ass.
Grandma, right out of there. Get Grandma's cookies right out of there.
I mean, hers are phenomenal. What's that, Danny?
I'm in.
You're in.
Yeah. Yeah, so we always eat like kings. Now, this year, my wife, for the antelope trip, she made shepherd's pie. And I know you're not a big fan of peas. But like a true champ, you ate them anyway.
He's a shitter guy, whether he's throwing it or taking one.
Whatever will help me poop.
Why do they call it taking a shit when you're really leaving one?
All right.
Yeah, so so between the beverage selection, which you could see, we had the as Ryan would say, the Coors lattes, and some sodas and water and juice and like all that stuff and the snacky stuff, and we have some prepared dinners. You made the boil. You also made an excellent chili that was delicious.
Oh, yeah.
And my wife made the shepherd's pie, which was really good. And so we ate very well while we were out there.
So what do you think your guys' takeaway from this trip? Because, like, every trip has something, right? Like, obviously, Shayne, it might be your stupid chair. Ooh, I said the Effenheimer. The chair.
That chair.
That chair.
That's the Woodenville talking.
But I know, right? I'm sweating back here, just so everybody knows.
We did tell you it was 120 proof, right?
Oh, my God. Anyways, what do you guys think your takeaway from this hunting trip would be?
Well, myself, the takeaway is hanging out with our guests, the people that put us up on their ranch. It's always just a thrill and a treasure just to be with them. They're such great people, and it's a whole different world, man. They're ranchers, man. They're big time cattle ranchers, and we don't see that around here, not in the magnitude that they are doing it. And they're so nice to us, and
They are.
it's such spectacular country. Hunting is always great. It's harvesting an animal. I feel blessed to have taken an antelope, and the camaraderie is always good. He's got some farmyard rituals that he goes through every day that are a little bit annoying and loud. We'll work on those.
It was your chili.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Shayne or?
Yeah,
Okay.
she's with us now. She's catching up.
But I don't know. It's a spectacular hunt. Whether you get an animal or not, they're always great. Getting the animal is the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Being in a different country and seeing how spectacular the scenery is,
That's amazing.
and the people and the lifestyle. It's just cool. What do you take away from it?
I will echo a lot of what you said, but also add to that that I'm pumped about this trip in particular because I feel like we found a couple of fantastic spots.
Right.
And so when we get the chance to go back at the end of next summer, next early fall, we already know rather than having to burn a day of okay, what's happened in the last year, what's the terrain like. We know already these are two great spots to go and get set up on.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than having some wishy-washy hunting for 1 or 2 days and then a couple of solid hunting days, we're going to get a lot more value out of the trip with the amount of time in blind.
Right.
And I won't be bringing a noisy-ass chair. Yeah, credit where so speaking of shout outs and credit where credit's due, we did bring the chair back.
Yeah.
And we went into Full Draw Outdoors, talked to our guy Willie, who owns Full Draw, and brought the chair in and said, this is an expensive chair, and it was loud. And he said, okay, let's get it out, and took it out. And he sat his rear end down in it. He weighs more than I do. He's 6'2" and probably 230 pounds. And he sat down. As soon as he sat down, I went, and he was like, okay.
How did that chair make it into the hunting market is what I want to know.
So the thing to me is it's a design flaw because it is a tripod chair that like collapses, and the way that it sets up is in the middle underneath where your rear end goes. There is a three-sided rubber coated piece that locks the three legs into place.
Right.
But the legs are plastic, and this triangular piece that sits in the middle that spins and locks them in place is rubberized.
Right, and it made like 3 distinct different noises.
It got dust in there,
Yeah.
and then it was creaky.
Oh.
Is what I think the issue was.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
So, like I said, to give credit where credit's due, Full Draw Outdoors, we love those guys. We spent a lot of time with Willie and his staff. And when we were in there and I brought the chair in and stuff, he said, no questions asked. Let's get you a new chair.
Yeah, he offered your money back or give me another $40 and I'll give you a better chair.
Yeah, and he gave me a pretty significant upgrade.
I'd have taken the money back because I would just use my camp chair.
His camp chair with the like crazy one-sided, been screwed together 6 times now.
Served me well.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. So,
Well, that was the hunting trip. Tell them about on the way home. We almost died on the way home.
Oh,
We
yeah.
did.
I've been waiting for this story.
That was a bad deal.
We
That
have
was
a-
a really bad deal.
we have a few things to say about the way home. So we're on the way home, and the earliest story is we're not far out of 45 minutes out of where we, again, keeping in mind this is a 12 or 13 hour drive back because of our limited speed or limited capacity for speed with the camper, and we're cruising out on a main road. It's a highway, and we're just moseying along, and I think you were trying to nap at the time probably. And I'm driving, and I look up, and
that's right. I never even saw it.
see this. I'm like almost speechless talking about it. What would clearly be a world record mule deer. This thing was huge mule deer. The body on this thing looked like a small horse, and the antlers on this thing were easily 3 feet tall. I mean, huge deer, huge. And there was the sides of the road everywhere out there, there's a ditch, and this thing has got its front legs up on the edge of the side of the road, just about to pavement, and the rear legs of this thing are almost at the bottom of the ditch, so it's almost at a 45-degree angle, and it's got its body all perched up, and it's looking back at me as we're coming up the road, and I was like, I should have said, TK, look at the deer.
I wish you would have said something a split second sooner, because by the time I got my eyes on the road, we'd gone past it, and he was just like going crazy about how huge this deer was.
Huge.
And pulling that trailer going 65 miles an hour, it's not that easy to
you can't
slam
just
on the brakes and turn around.
No.
So I never got to saw the darn thing.
And we didn't get, within probably 100 yards of it, and it turned around, ran back into the cornfield that it was had just come out of. But I was like, I've never seen a deer that big in my whole life. It was huge deer, huge.
God, I wish I'd have seen that.
So hopefully that one doesn't get caught by predators, that somebody gets a chance to feed their family on that thing and put that thing on their wall, because that was an incredibly big deer.
Right.
So then shortly after that.
Well, then we get to the road construction. That I tried to sleep through, but that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, so anyway, road construction, and we get a little farther west, east, heading back east, and we're driving along, and TK is trying to nap again.
We have an issue, when two guys go out west, you try to get into a rhythm where one guy can sleep and the other guy drive, and then vice versa, but we haven't hit that spot yet.
Yeah,
we haven't hit that rhythm, because when you're going out, you're always so excited. No one can sleep anyway.
Yeah.
But it's something guys got to work at to do, and we didn't. So you did most of the driving.
That's all right.
Yeah, you're young.
Ish. Young-ish.
So
anyway.
TK did most of the sleeping, is what you're saying.
No, he didn't sleep much.
Nah.
He doesn't. TK has a hard time sleeping. He needs
period.
a rubber mallet and a phone book.
There you go.
To get into nap mode, which is going to be part of my hunting pack going forward. Anyway, so we're traveling along. He's trying to sleep, and I'm still driving, and not much further than where this road construction was, because all this between deer, road construction, this next incident was probably an hour. I mean, we're talking about a pretty tight timeline here. Anyway, so we're cruising down the road, and I look up, and I see this pickup that's in the opposite lane coming toward us. And he just starts drifting into our lane. And I was like, oh, as he started getting closer to the line, I'm thinking he's adjusting his seatbelt or he's moving something or whatever.
He's clearly looking down at his phone.
He'll
Or
correct.
she.
He'll correct. Oh, it was a him. I saw him.
Was it?
Yeah. He'll correct is what I'm thinking in my head. He gets halfway into our lane, and we're within a couple hundred yards of him. And again, we're doing 65. He's probably doing at least 65. We're literally seconds away from a head-on collision.
We're already, by the time I get my head up, we're already on the gravel on the side of the road, pulling that big camper.
I've pulled as far to the right as I can without us going in the ditch. Like, I've just kind of slowly maneuvered my wife's Yukon XL, which is, it's loaded, so it's got leather and all that stuff. So this bitch is heavy. And then we got the camper behind us. So I'm not making any real dramatic athletic moves with this rig. I'm moving slowly over to the side of the road, just trying to
time warp scan filter and
give this
see if your
give this
dog
guy
or
as much
cat
room
can
as I
sit
can as I
as
start moving
stiff.
that direction. And this guy just keeps drifting. He gets easily half or 3/4 of the way into our lane. Like, I've got nowhere to go, and at this point we're destined for head-on collision. And I don't know, did I make a sound or something?
Oh, you were hammering the horn. You were laying on the horn, and he finally looked up and threw it back into his own lane. I mean, another second, and I think we would be done.
Oh, less than a second probably.
Yeah, I mean, he just barely missed us, and he pulled his head up because he was clearly looking down.
You could see he had one hand kind of in front of him, and like TK said, he had his head down.
It doesn't take much, man. You can't be texting and driving or be distracted in whatever form that is. Because for those of you that go out west or go on any road trips, you hit that soft gravel on the side of the road. Sometimes it don't matter. It's just going to pull you right in. And I thought for sure it was going to pull us in that trailer, and we were going to be a mess in the
Thank
ditch.
God.
Yeah.
Whoo.
Yeah, I was watching the gravel because I'm like, I got to keep this bitch, meaning my wife's truck, and this trailer on the pavement. Because I know, TK and I, we both have traveled a lot, hunting or not. I know I can't get in the gravel because it might.
You
pull
did
me
get in the gravel a little bit.
just a little.
I know, but if it would have been a little bit more, I think it would have sucked us right down.
Yeah, we'd have been rolling for sure. And
Do that sucking noise again. That a girl.
You're welcome.
That'll
be
gets me
$20.
going.
Thank you.
Oh, discount today, on sale. Yeah. So anyway,
Get the stripper in there. See how she does that.
how am I supposed to keep doing the show? Right? Give yourself about six.
Oh, Shane, I caught that.
Give yourself about 6 rim shots. There we go. Yeah, so I'm laying on the horn, get over as far as I can. Finally, the guy at the last possible millisecond realizes that he's about to die. Because in a collision like that, for those of you that don't know, the likelihood of not only him, but Tom and I surviving is almost nothing.
I told Shane, I said, last thing you can do with that is hammer that accelerator to the ground because you want to be going faster than he is.
Right. And we had our seatbelts on.
Oh, yeah,
but
always.
at that speed and that kind of weight and all that stuff.
It would have been ugly.
It would have been real bad.
Thank you, Father, for saving us.
Right, exactly. So
No kidding.
He's looked out for me a lot of times in my life. Thank you.
Sometimes I feel like I'm God's favorite. Do you ever feel that way?
yeah,
Okay.
for sure. So anyway, that was the most exciting part of our getting back into town.
And then you didn't get any sleep. You had a big event the next day. I mean, you didn't get home till 4:00 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I got home and I slept. I think I slept till noon the next day.
That wasn't an option for me because I had my slave driver Jill
Yep.
tell me I had to be on site at 11 or 11:30 or whatever in Taylor's Falls, which is an hour plus drive from our place. So I probably slept about 5 hours by the time I got home. And
You did? You got 5 hours?
about 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah, luckily the wife let me sleep. She kept the kids distracted. So basically I slept, set my alarm for
Oh, that's something.
9:45 or something, and then got up and put my stuff on right away, knowing that we had this mud run set up. It was an event that we had planned way ahead of time. Jill, my lovely executive assistant, put this thing together in honor of my friend that died, a buddy of mine that died last year of brain cancer.
Right.
And he'd been asking me for years to do mud because he had an obsession with mud runs. So he'd been asking me to do one of these mud runs with him, and I always said I would, and of course never followed through on it because that's just how we are as humans. And then he died, so didn't have that opportunity to do this with him. And right away, when Jill came on board with my real estate company, I said, this is one of these things we got to do in the next year. So she did the research online, found this mud run, put the whole thing together. We got T-shirts made that had a memorial for him on them to kind of honor his memory, and then put together a team of people that were going to come and run with us. And that just happened to be literally the day that we got back in town.
Yeah.
And so we raced
Had
across.
that event not been scheduled,
Right.
we'd have stayed out there another day or two.
At least, for sure. Let me try to fill my tag, too.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got back into town here and got camper dropped off, got you situated, got you squared away. I, drove the hour back to my place and climbed right into the sack and slept that 5 hours, got up, and was running on pure adrenaline that whole next day to get through that mud run. But it worked out.
I'm all out of adrenaline.
We finished it. We finished the mud run, and, Jill was there with her fiance, Chris, and my wife was there, and a bunch of other folks that joined us for that, which worked out great. And everybody except one, which to his credit, I won't mention him by name, but to his credit, it was better that he didn't try to finish because it could have, he wasn't, we'll just say in the physical conditioning to do this kind of thing.
Right.
So he wanted to do it because he was a real good friend of my buddy as well.
Right.
So he wanted to try to honor him, and he did what would easily be the most difficult part of it to start this mud run with this giant hill up and down. He did that, and that was enough to keep him from getting injured or whatever. And then the rest of us finished the course, and we got our symbolic medals or whatever that you get, the T-shirts, that kind of thing.
It's kind of fun for us to be able to go on a hunt,
Yep.
come back and relive it through the video and talk about it on a podcast, because the hundreds and hundreds of hunts that I've had in my life, they're great. You take pictures and they're a great memory, but boy, you don't really get to share them with other people, and unless they're the people that you're there with, and that's always great. And that's a big part of the whole process for me, hunting, is the camaraderie, sharing the experience with people, friends, and then coming home, sharing it with your family, and certainly sharing the food. But this is just another whole element to it where we can share our experience with other people. And if they don't want to hear about our hunt, that's fine. They can turn the station or whatever.
No, they can't.
Oh, you can't.
They
You
gotta-
stick with us.
Yeah.
You're done. You stay with us. Damn it.
We didn't even talk about how we almost died
Yeah.
during the hunt from gas.
Oh, you're an exaggerator.
What
We
are
got
you
the
talking
campers
about?
got the heater. We pulled the old heater out because it don't work, and we jammed a pencil down the old gas hose.
Before, we're talking about jamming stuff in holes. Before we get to that, before we did that,
Right?
we're trying to
Yeah,
cook
we're trying
food.
to light the stove. That is true. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. We're trying to light the stove, and the stove's not lighting. I'm like, I just don't understand. We had it lit before,
Yep.
and it just makes no sense because it's not rocket science.
No.
It's like it should be lighting.
Yes.
So we got the gas on, and we turned this over. And so finally we said heck with it, and we went to bed, and I think we just ate snacks. And in the middle of the night, I woke up and I said, I know why that stove ain't lighting. It's because we pulled the heater out,
Yeah.
and all the gas was coming in through where the heater used to be into the camper, and we're trying to light the stove.
'Cause it never
Well,
got
the gas
plugged.
is flowing into the camper. And I know there's a lot of you thinking, well, you guys are a couple of idiots. But,
'Cause we
it
are.
was ventilated enough to where,
But we turned the gas off before we went to bed.
oh, yeah.
When we realized we couldn't get the stove functioning, we just thought it was an issue with the stove, so we turned
Right.
the gas off.
So, yeah, thanks for reminding me that. I'm
We're like, why are we smelling
isn't
gas?
that
Where's
stove
the-
lighting? Oh.
Like, the stove is not lighting, but we can smell gas clearly.
So we took a number 2 pencil or whatever, regular pencil, and did one layer of electrical tape, jammed it in there,
He ran that sucker in there good.
and it sealed it up. There's probably some more people going, you fools, that doesn't work.
Yes, it did.
It did.
Yes.
Because I actually took a lighter to it.
Yep. And there's nothing
Shane's
there.
like, don't do that.
Gonna kill us, blow us up. Yeah, so little electrical tape, number 2 pencil, which is the same diameter as the gas line.
Yep.
Force that sucker in there as tight as not only he, but I could get it in there. And then again, taped that opening again
Right,
afterward.
right.
And it was sealed up tight
And
as a
then the
drum.
stove worked.
Stove worked great.
That's funny.
What's
All
funny?
right.
Oh, yeah. So I think we probably should bring this plane in for a landing.
Yep.
I think we've covered about as much of this trip as we want to cover.
I hope you enjoyed listening to us ramble on about our trip, and maybe someday we can get a contest or something where we can take people with us.
Yeah, that will definitely be on the horizon. We'll take
Yeah.
a fan, or I know Jill has been real eager to get out and do some hunting, so we can do that too.
I'm eager to send my husband with you as well.
Yeah, well, he needs to hunt too.
We have a big banner that we're going to give away. I don't know how we're going to do that, but we have a big WeFest banner.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll figure that out. We'll do that in
Yeah.
the next podcast. We'll have a conversation about how we
It's
want
got
to handle
Blake
that.
Sheldon.
Yep.
Florida Georgia line.
FGL.
Yeah.
Yeah, who we met, eating supper.
Who's the third guy? Dirk Bentley.
Dirk Bentley. Yeah. Anyway, so we're gonna bring this thing in. It's
Yep.
been a lot of fun tonight. It was an amazing trip, even though we had a lot of craziness going on. I think that adds to the excitement of
Absolutely.
the adventure. And we always have adventures when we hunt together. I'm looking forward to more of that. We got deer coming up. We potentially got another elk trip with John Basinger coming up.
Yep.
So that'll all be real
Yeah,
good.
the year's not complete if I don't get out west after an elk.
Yeah.
I don't think I've missed a year of elk hunting since I met my bride and we went on our first
Since
date.
1927.
Went on our first date when she helped me, me and Robin butcher 4 elk. That was my first date with my wife. We talked about it before,
We did.
but that was 32 years ago, and I've never missed a year of elk hunting.
Yeah. Well, we're going to hopefully get that sucker checked off the list this year.
Yeah.
Make that happen with
We got
John.
some deer hunting and some
we
bird hunting, and giddy up.
Giddy
Close her
on up.
brother.
Folks, thanks for coming out and joining us for this week's episode of Boots and Backstraps. Remember to please pinwheel the like button and make sure that you are sharing this on a you're giving me solo. Sorry. I'm on the 2-cam. I know. Get it, fire me. If you're watching this right now, hope you're enjoying the entertainment.
Good thing we got someone that can edit.
No, we don't need to edit that out. Leave it in. It's funny. All right, so make sure you pinwheel the like button because want to make sure that we're getting your feedback about the show. So leave comments as well. Make sure you share this episode. And all those things help the algorithm. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on, whether it's one of the audio-only platforms, a video platform. The video stuff, especially as Danny mentioned earlier, the YouTube thing is great because you can see all the pictures. You can see the videos that we're posting throughout the episode. And make sure you head over to our Facebook and our Instagram and our Twitter. And we've got a TikTok that is in the process as well. So you have lots of little clips.
Oh, it's going. It's going.
Lots of little clips on TikTok. I want to say Twitter. TikTok of the episodes that we are filming. So make sure you get over there and check those out. We definitely appreciate the support. And if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube and other channels, why? Tell me right now, why have you not done it? It's right down there. Just do it. Hit the button. Do us a favor and hit the button. TK, bring this plane in for a landing, brother.
All right. Well, folks, whether you're belting out your favorite country song or out there pursuing your favorite game animal, I encourage you to use that same passion to pursue the Lord. He'll teach you to shoot straight. Thanks for tuning in and tuning in. Come on now. Thanks for tuning in. We'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Boots and Backstraps is proudly brought to you by Homes by Shayne. Make your move with the Homes by Shayne team. Commitment to community and unparalleled customer service are the foundation of this RE/MAX Results referral-based business. Their driven team of experts communicate with their clients every step of the way, ensuring a memorable experience from the first conversation through your closing day. Go to homesbyshayne.com. Let's get you home.
The hunt is on, looking for backstraps, way deep in the woods, tracking in a swamp to a hay field under the harvest moon. When the tags are filled, it's time to switch up our boots. Head down to the honky tonk, get us a swing dance or two. We're talking about boots and backstraps.